Hello children, in this video we're going to be creating the game Space Shooter. So to begin with, we're going to name the project right here. Space Shooter, and then you can always click on File and Save Now. So this is going to save the project. So now to begin with, let's start adding the sprites. For that, what I'm going to do is delete the sprite one which is present here. I'm going to say yes and start adding the rocket. We have the rocket ship. Then we're going to add the rock. Let's add the bullet. For the bullet, I'm going to pick up this button here, and then we're going to add game over. For that, I'm going to open a fresh new page, browse for the picture, game over pick, and then I'm going to go down to images. Then let's pick up game over picture. Like I'm going to go right click and say save image as. Go down to downloads and save it as game over. It's already there, so I'm going to just replace it, and then I'm going to upload it here. So to upload the picture which I've downloaded, I'm going to hover my mouse over, choose a sprite, and then go into paint. So when I do this, I can come down over here and click on the upload button. Upload costume. Okay, once uploaded, once clicked on upload, I'm going to choose the game over picture and say open. So when I do this, you see that the picture is inserted here. I'm going to be clicking on convert to vector, and then click on the button here, select, take up picture here and just resize it. Click here, make it up a little. Make sure that it fits the screen so that when I place it on the screen it looks good. There you go, it looks good now. I'm going to go down to the code. To begin with, on the game over, for the game over sprite, we're going to start adding the codes, and we're going to make it invisible because we cannot see the other sprites which are present here. However, they are present. Okay, so I'm going to click on the events, pick up the when flag click button, and then go into looks and go and pick up hide. So when I click on flag, see, wrong. Okay, on the game over, I'm going to hide the game over picture. So for that, I'm going to go into events, pick up when flag click, and then save. Go into looks and save. So when clicked on flag, it's going to hide. So now we have the rock and the button. So now let's resize the spaceship, the rock and the button. So let's resize the button. So for that, I'm going to click on the flag click button, and I'm going to go down to looks. Under looks, we have set size. I'm going to set the size to say 10%. So when we do this, you see that the bullet has reduced the size. We're going to go down to the rock. I'm going to click on when flag click, and then go into looks, and let's set the size to say 70%. So when the flag is clicked, size of the rock reduces. Then we're going to go into spaceship. I'm going to say when the flag is clicked, go into looks, and we'll be resizing. Set size to say 50. So there you go, the size of the spaceship has reduced. And then we're going to turn it around. So for that, we're going to use the command point and direction. Here is point and direction, and I'm going to change the direction to 180. So now the flag is clicked. Here you go. That's set. So now we're going to set the X and Y position also. So the Y position is that. So here we're going to move the rocket up and down. So we don't have to set the Y position. We're going to set only the X position because it's going to remain the same. So here I'm going to go into motion and I'm going to say set X with this value. So the next thing we're going to do is move the spaceship up and down. So for that I'm going to pick up the command here and the events saying when the up arrow clicked. So when the up arrow is clicked, we're going to change X by when the up arrow is clicked, I'm going to change Y. So I'm going to say change Y by 10. So now I'm pressing the up arrow on the keyboard, my rocket is moving up. So now the next thing I'm going to be doing is when the down arrow is clicked, the rocket ship has to move downwards. So I'm going to do a right click and say duplicate, and over here I'm going to change it to down arrow and then change the value of 10 to -10. So this way is going to move downwards every time I press the down arrow. -10. It's going up. So our rocket ship is moving up and down. The next thing we're going to do here is rename the sprites that we have added. So I'm going to click on the button and name it as bullet. And then the last one was game over. Okay, so now our rocket is ready. We forgot to add the backdrop. So I'm going to go down to choose a backdrop and I'm going to choose the galaxy. Okay, so the next step is we're going to set the position of the bullet. So for that we're going to drag the bullet here. And then we're going to say hide because we don't want the bullet to be seen. The next step is when the space key is pressed, our bullet has to shoot. So we're going to go into events and I'm going to be picking up the command when space key pressed. So when the space key is pressed, we're going to go into control and say create clone of myself. So when we do this, when the space key is pressed, you can see that there's one bullet created. Okay. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to say when I start as clone, I'm going to set its X position. So I'm going to be saying go to XY. So the X position is going to remain the same. However, the Y position is going to be along the position of the rocket. So for that I'm going to go into sensing and I'm going to say the rocket ship. So here I'm going to get the X and the Y position. So I'm going to say here Y position, and then I'm going to be placing here. We picked up this command here, backdrop/stage, and change the drop down menu. Selected the drop down menu and selected rocket ship. So once we select rocket ship, we're going to get the X, Y position and the other things, and we can change it accordingly. So now the position of the bullet is set. So I'm going to be saying repeat until the bullet touches the edge, so our bullets has to shoot till the edge. So for that I'm going to be saying, so I'm going to go down into controls and then say repeat until edge. We picked up the wrong command. Down into controls and pick up the command here which says repeat until, and then go into sensing and say touching edge. So until the bullet touches the edge, that is the other side of the screen, it's going to change its X position. So for that I'm going to click on motion and say change X by . So now whenever I press the space key, we do not see. Can anyone guess why we cannot see? Because we have hit the button here, so or the bullet. So I'm going to go into looks and I'm going to do the same show. So when I press the key now, when I press the space key, working now, looks like there was a glitch. So when I press the space key, you see that the bullets is getting shot, but then when I come down here, you see that towards the edge the bullets can be seen. So what we're going to say here is, we're going to say delete this clone. So I'm going to go down to control and say delete this. Delete this clone. So when I press the space key, you no longer see the bullet towards the edge. So whenever I move the rocket up and down, you see that the bullets are coming out from the rocket, because we have set the Y position of the rocket to the position of Y position of the bullet to the position of the rocket. So now the rocket is moving, the bullet is getting shot. The last thing is that the rocks have to be set. So I'm going to go down to rocks here and I'm going to say here we need 4 to 5 rocks so that it looks more challenging for the player who's playing. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to say create clone of myself. So when I click on flag, you see that there are 2 rocks made. However, I would like to have 3 to 4. So for that, what I'm going to say is repeat. I'm going to say repeat 5 times so that we have 5 rocks. If you want, you can make them more or you can reduce it. So now when I do this and when I click on the flag, you see that we would be having 6. The 6th one is because we have not hit the rock in the beginning. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to click on the looks and I'm going to say hide. So when I click on the flag and when I create the clone, I'm going to go down here and say when I start as clone, I'm going to show the rocks. So here, there you go, the rocks are here. So we have total of 5 rocks, which is perfect and goes well with the logic or the code that we have written. So now the next step is we need to set the position. We need to set the position of this clone. So I'm going to pick up this and place it here. So it would be around x would be -60 and y would be 107. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say go to XY. So for that, I would be going into motion and picking up the command go to XY. So once I pick up the command go to XY, the X position would be negative 60, and let's set the Y position. So for that Y position, I'm going to pick up a random number here because we want it to come from this top position to the bottom position here. So it's going to pick up the Y position, random Y positions along the Y axis. So for that, I'm going to say pick random and then place here. Then we would be saying 107, which is on the top, to the bottom. Let's see. Okay. So the X position here would be 221, and then the Y position would be 173 on the top, and at the bottom, let's see, it would be around negative 139. So negative 139. So once set, let's see if this works. So when I do this, you see that the rocks are coming down at random positions, and there are 5 rocks. So this is what we wanted. Now we are going to be moving it from right to left. So let's begin. So I'm going to be saying here that the rocks are going to move towards the spaceship unless it touches the spaceship. So we're going to use the command repeat until here and say make it move until it touches the spaceship. So I'm going to say touching spaceship, and then the next thing would be we would change the X position of the rock. So I'm going to say here change X by a number. So let's see, change X by 10. So when I click on the flag, you see that it's going towards the other side. So if I say negative, it's going too fast. So now we don't want the rocks to move at the same speed. We don't want all the rocks to move at the same speed. We can assign different speeds to these rocks. So what I'm going to do here is create a variable. So I'm going to go here to variables and say make a variable. I'm going to say speed and save for all sprites and click on OK. And once the variable is set, I'm going to say set variable speed to 0, and then over here I'm going to say set variable speed to random number between -4 and -2 and -4, so that it's perfect. And then I'm going to say change X by the speed, that is a variable which stores the number between -2 and -4. So I'm going to go down to variables and pick up the command speed and place it here. So now you see that the rocks are moving. So now when the rock touches the other side of the edge, we want the rocks to go back towards the left. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go into the control and we're going to say if the rock's X position is greater than a certain value, that is beyond this value, it is reached here, that is if the X value is -236, it has to go back to its original position, that is the position which is here. So I'm going to quickly do that by picking up the if statement. I'm going to place it here and I'm going to say if x position is less than negative 236 or maybe a little more, 262. So let's say 262. We're going to go into operators and say less than, and we're going to say if x position is less than negative 262. If the x position is less than negative 262, then it has to go back to this place here. So for that I'm going to duplicate and I'm going to say go back to its original position. So let's see if that happens. So once it goes out, because the other two rocks are touching the spaceship, they're not going back. We're going to write codes even for that. However, the other rocks are going back and coming down. So here the next step we're going to say is if it touches a spaceship. So what should happen if it touches a spaceship? It can go back to its original position, isn't it? So let's try adding that command a little later. However, we're going to say we're going to be seeing here. Okay, so now let's code the bullet, as in if the bullet touches the, so we're going to write the command if So I'm going to say if the rock is touching bullet. So I'm going to go into sensing and I'm going to say if the rock is touching the bullet. If the rock is touching the bullet, what are we supposed to do? Our score is going to increase, but we have not created the variable score. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create the variable score, and then I'm going to say OK, and then I'm going to say set score to 0, and then over here change score 1, change score by 1, and then again it's going to go back to its original position. The last one is if is touching spaceship or the rocket ship, it's going to again it's going to go back to its original position. So now let's try. If the rocket touches, it's going to go back to its original position, and then we have all the 5 stones coming up. However, if I press the space key, my score is increasing and the rocks are getting So now the last thing we have to do is if it touches a spaceship, its life has to reduce by 1. So for that, let's create another variable. I'm going to go into variables and say create a variable life and say okay, and then we're going to say set life with 3, and then we're going to, if that is a spaceship, we're going to say change, it's going to come out. If it touches the space, if it touches the rocket, it's going to come out of this loop. Okay, so now here, when if it touches the rocket ship, it's going to come out of the loop, and then we have to change the, we have to lose a life. So we have not created the variable life, so I'm going to be creating the variable life. Okay, so now once the variable life is created, once the variable life is created, I'm going to say set life with 3, and then I'm going to say change life by -1. When it comes out of the loop, we're going to say -1, and then we're going to make it go back to its original position. So let's try this. Okay, so it's going back to the original position, and then if the life becomes 0, okay, so if you lose a life, you say set. Okay, so if you lose a life, you say set life to -1, and then you're going to say hide, and go down here and say hide, and then I'm going to be saying that if the life is equal to 0, so I'm going to put up this command here, and I'm going to say if equals command, I'm going to go down to variable and pick up life, which is a variable, and then say if life is equal to 0. So if life is equal to 0, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to be game over. So I'm going to broadcast the message here. I'm going to broadcast message game over. Game over. Broadcast message game over. So I'm going to go down to game over and say when I receive game over, it should stop everything. So I'm going to say first of all, it's going to show itself. The game over is going to get displayed, and also we're going to say stop volume. So it works good. So we have the game over command displayed. So this is how you can create a game. However, I'm going to go down to variables, and I'm going to remove the speed which is present here, and I'm going to replace the score and the life, so that you know how many lives are left and how much you have scored. You can always go down, drag this here and place it here. Okay, so let's look into it in the full screen mode. So when I click on flag, so we see that its score is increasing. Now let's try to get hit by so we scored 11 and then we have lost all lives. So that's it for this video. Keep learning, keep exploring.